some technical issues.
Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of agenda. I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Approval agenda has passed. Appreciate everyone coming out here this evening to hear this very important topic of the ARC committee. After this meeting, just to let everyone know, we'll be scheduling a future town hall. And just also want to reassure everyone that we are not in any hurry to move on this. We want to fully understand what we have going on. Allow everyone to have comments. Again, we'll have our town hall and then a potential second reading at some point in the future. At this time, I'm going to have ask or Director Brady will be leading the discussion here in a minute. Public comments. Members wishing to make comments must state their name and address. Time limits 5 minutes per person. Comments for a special meeting must be referenced to the ARC topic. As a reminder, this is not a question and answer forum. Public comments.
This one you want me, okay, yeah. Okay. Can I stand here or how?
Yeah, sure.
You're comfortable. You be comfortable.
Okay, good, thank you. I'm Sharon O'Hare and I appreciate what you're doing. I sat at your table about 10 years ago. My address is 216 Mumford's Landing Road in Ocean Pines. So having been a board member, I appreciate the volunteer work you do. It's a hard job. Thank you for doing that. I've been a realtor since 79. I've lived in Ocean Pines since 75. And I'm concerned about the ARC requirements with the resale certificate. And I want to be sure you understand the ramifications for this. This requiring us as-built survey within the last 24 months is a serious issue, and let me explain why. When you get a contract, there are 3 ways a buyer can get out of the contract. So put yourself in the seller's position. You've sold your home. You're excited. Buyers can get out by a home inspection. They don't like the home inspection. They can get out because they don't get the financing. They can't afford to buy the home. Or they can get out on the resale certificate. It's state law. And they have 5 days to rescind the contract, no questions asked, from receipt of those resale certificate. So that's what you need to understand, the 5 days from receipt of it. Now, what you're doing, if this passes, you're taking this requirement for a survey and putting a long period of time to get this. All surveyors, there's only a couple of them in the area. There are probably a 30-day minimum before they can begin to think about getting the survey done. Quite possibly, let's say 2 months. Cost depends again on the house and the size of it. $1,000, $2,000. They're not going to give me exact numbers, but they gave me a range. So you're looking at a 30 to 60-day delay. And you're looking at $1,000 to $2,000 for the seller to pay to get the resale certificate, which is a Maryland law. We have to provide as an HOA for the buyers. So that's the key point. I understand what you're trying to do with the ARC. I understand that, and I respect that you're trying to keep up the property values. And there have been some mistakes in the past. Some things have slipped through the cracks. But this is not the way to solve it. To do as a buyer coming in, I have a right by Maryland, by the real estate contract, which is Maryland state approved contract, paragraph 46, that you can get a survey. When there is a title company involved, and there always is, someone's got to settle the property. They have a form that they use that says if you want a survey, you have a right for a survey, and they will ask you to sign off if you want one. So the buyer has two opportunities to get the survey. In the real estate contract and in the title company. And it would be at the buyer's expense. So basically, what your job is doing, you're kind of overstepping what the requirements are. The 5-day rescission period is the most important thing. Because up to that point, they can back out at any time. So if you're 30, 60 days or plus. So think if the seller is who you're representing, because you're the HOA, you represent the property owners here. And what you've done to them is that they may or may not get a contract because the buyers can walk away at any time. Your job is a strong ARC role is to maintain the property values. And you're by requiring this survey, you're putting an unnecessary burden, hardship, along with extra expense on the sellers. It's not the job of you guys to tell them they need a survey. The state contract has it in it, the title company has it in there, and is their choice. So if you have any questions on how this is done, I'm glad to answer them as a realtor and someone who's been doing this for almost 50 years. So.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right.
Thank you, Sharon.
Public comments. Seeing none, I'm gonna close the floor for public comments. Next up, we're gonna turn this over to Rick Brady to talk about the ARC guideline changes.
And just so folks know, I'm the liaison to the committee, and we had, I had done like a first reading a couple of months ago. And, you know, that's when we really take a good look at what we're receiving, what kind of questions we're gonna have before we get to the second reading and do any, you know, changes or voting on the document. After the first reading though, I found, and I think many of my colleagues here, there were several new recommendations being proposed on these as-built surveys, which was kind of a surprise. You know, I thought we were just doing some updates to newer materials and that sort of thing. And so, you know, looked at this, I thought there was a lot of concerns with that. Our ARC document is one of the most important governing documents that we've got because it affects every single property here. So changes that we make in that document affect everyone here. And so we have to look at it very closely, make sure that things make sense and not make it, you know, unattainable for people. And, you know, so tonight, you know, I wanted to have this meeting so that Michael as chair, when it was being drafted, it can explain some of the changes and why they think that it needs to be done. We also need to stay to the discussion. It's only as-built surveys. It's a special meeting. It's specific to that. We will later, as John mentioned, have a town hall meeting in the coming weeks. You know, regarding any of the other documents, but I guess I'm just going to start off just some of the ones that I had some issues with, and whether you will address that or not, whether you want to come up here and you want to talk from there.
I'd rather talk from here.
You're good with that.
This way no bullets can
Yeah. The ones that jumped out at me, and it wasn't just those, but you know, there were a lot. There were like 40 different paragraphs of adding this. The requirement for an as-built within the last 24 months just seems arbitrary. You know, there are households here, many households here, who have never either changed their footprint or they added a screen porch 15 years ago. It just doesn't seem that that's a fair thing to do. It adds built for improvements to existing structures. That just didn't seem clear to me. If it's not changing again the footprint, I'm not sure why we would have to, you know, folks will have to get that. There's a requirement for having the as-built survey for any variance request. I think that that's an overreach. There are some that they don't need to have an as-built. for a variance. It really depends on what the issue that they're asking for. And as-built and resale packets, and Sharon, I thank you so much, Sharon. As you all know, she teaches these courses for the Real Estate Association here. She knows her stuff. Um, we, we're not a regulatory body. We're policy. We don't, regulate real estate packets. We provide them with the documentation that it's there. But, just like what has happened, I've done it in the past is, in a hot market, I waive maybe some of the things I may have or should have asked for. We can't enforce that. That's not under our purview. That's not under the purview of the other ones that jumped out at me is that now we're wanting to do as-built on temporary structures. If people have an above-ground pool, grandma buys, little girl a playhouse. Now we're gonna have to get an as-built survey for that. And what happens if they move it from the right side of their backyard to the left? Do they have to get another one? I mean, again, I just think that it's really an overreach for that. And again, going back to new fencings, have to submit an as-built survey within the last 2 years to even get permits. I mean, it's kind of like, we're putting people, in a very unattainable position by these requirements, and those are just some of them. So anyway, I will now turn it over to Mike.
Hang on one second. I'm gonna suspend Robert's rules.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. I want to thank Sharon, first of all, because Sharon, I respect where you're coming from. I understand it. Got a lot of experience. And, Elaine's interpretation, I respect. And I'm as a volunteer, which I resigned a month and a half ago, but I'm still here because we can't find a replacement. I have no skin in this game. What I am is I'm an engineer of logic. I looked at the system. I ran communities as project manager, as vice president for new construction communities for years, 40 years. I'm here to help, not here as an adversarial person, okay? This is what I see. I see a soft spot in what's going on in here. I'm looking 10 years down the road. What we're doing right now, because of COVID, we haven't been doing inspections for 2 years during the COVID process. Since then, there have been projects without permits. When you have projects without permits, let me tell you what happens. You put fences on other people's property, put fences across DRLs. Weird stuff happens. Sheds start appearing on property lines. And what we do, here's our policy. Our policy is after the fact, just sign off on it. It's grandfathered in. Okay. Sharon, I turn to you. In 2 years, how many resales do you think happened in Ocean Pines during this time?
During COVID? Well, probably 8 years ago, we had about 600 sales a year. I would say in the last year,
No,
200.
20,
so if we're
21,
looking at
22.
COVID, it was probably a little smaller than that, I'm gonna guess. This is a pure guess, 150 to 200. I don't know, a year. It's dropped but there were resale certificates still coming out because we had to provide those. So someone operationally pulled the file and should have walked around the home on the outside and looked to see, is the porch approved? Is the deck approved? Whatever. That's what the outside, and then Ruth Ann will figure out what the price would be. Have they paid the HOA fees or are they delinquent? Remember, the sellers pay $250 to Ocean Pines to get that resale certificate. And then a buyer pays $150 to Ocean Pines to get on your roll. So there's $400 coming into the association from every transfer that occurs. So these things were happening during the COVID period. It had to. It's law. We had to get those.
I suspect that those numbers are higher because people were moving down here. They were buying houses left and right. You look at Delaware, Delaware's traffic went up 35%. It's been published by a traffic survey study by an engineering company. So here's what I buy. I buy that we had people coming down and buying houses in that period of time. That were grandfathered in for these violations. And today, they're still being grandfathered in violations because it's after the fact. So let me take you 10 years down the road. Why do we have guidelines? Why do we have declaration and restrictions? Because you know what? They're being eroded. Over time, they're going to be eroded. I don't have skin in this. I really don't care. You guys have to make the decision. What my job is as an ex-chair is to present to you what's happening down the road. And that's my concern because I live here.
I'm gonna just interject here because I think, and I understand why this has gotten over the years confusing. It's, you're talking a lot about CPI and violations and that sort of thing. And I think somewhere along the line, prior to 2 years ago when we rectified it, that for whatever reason, a board decided to take the responsibilities of the board on violations and move it to ARC. And it became very confusing, I know, for people who were on that committee, because they would be having to be focused on violations and cleaning that stuff and whatever. But we fixed that 2 years ago. It is back now, violations, CPI. That has absolutely, other than signing off on the permits, has nothing to do any longer with ARC. That is our responsibility as a board to work with operations to do that. So I understand where there was a lot of confusion with that. I don't think that having these as-built surveys is the problem. It's a, as we talked about before, with the order of permitting, so that people aren't doing things with the county. There certainly was a problem, you're right, during COVID, because inspections were not being done. And so that didn't help. People were kind of doing whatever they had going on in their backyard without proper approval. I just don't feel like in the future, we should penalize everybody for what the sins of the past. We need to fix. And I think that that's what we're working to try to do. But I don't think the as-built, to me, that comes across as punishing our community for the sins of the past, rather than looking for a better path and future of making sure that those kinds of things don't happen again. And I know, and I love Michael. He has done a great job on that committee. So, you know, I understand where you're coming from. And I also understand what the confusion is, because we're getting wrapped up in violations, which is not an ARC thing. You're trying to fix what happened. I just don't think this is the way to do it for our members.
And Elaine and I had spoke miles of this before this meeting occurred, okay? And I know where Elaine's.
We respect each other.
Respect each other. Absolutely. And, you know, I'm not standing up here without a solution. That was my solution. Suggestion is as-built. I don't want to turn to the board right now, what's your solution? Because it takes thought process. You got to kind of figure this out. But I'm going to give you an example. We have to sit at, look, before I get into this, and I don't mean to extend this meeting, but I just want to make sure everybody understands what the root of it is. We have two members of the ARC committee sitting over here to the left. Gentlemen, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Please. Phil Grillo. I'm here 26 years. As a matter of fact, you sold me my house.
How did you get there?
Thank you.
Jason Caceres, I live over in Teal Bay on Lookout Point. Love it here.
Great.
Big time over here.
Thank you for your
Mike, I had a quick question.
participation.
Yeah,
Right.
so on these permits, so, and the county doesn't require any of this stuff, is that correct?
The county has requirements that are different from Ocean Pines. Ocean Pines are
But
more
as far as
restrictions.
as-built stuff, they don't require anything like that, is that correct?
They do on new construction.
About
Okay,
resale?
on resale, they have to submit a survey
Okay.
showing the proposed request. Now, they draw that stuff in, and this is where I was dovetailing into.
Mhm.
We get stuff, surveys from 1986, from 1996. Well, from that period of time to today, there's dozens of improvements that's been done to the property. We have no idea what we're looking at, and we have to make an informed decision. It's impossible unless you visit the site and you know what you're looking at, because there are no property lines. How do you measure something from a property line that you don't, it's imaginary at that point because it's not steady. So there's a question of how do you expect the committee to make solid decisions without bogus information? And I'll give you an example. One person gave us a 1986. We asked them to perform, they give us an as-built, so they gave us an as-built. Their fence was on next door's property. And, they had no idea. So how could you, so these are the situations that we come up against. So I'm asking the board, what's the solution? Because again, I have no skin in the game. I'm just seeing a soft spot right now. Because 10 years down the road, many of us won't be here. But they still own a home.
So what you're saying is on the burden then, of course, is on the seller to pay.
No, not necessarily, but
Well, as far as getting a survey, to which you mentioned $1,000 to $2,000 to get this resurveyed so they can sell their house. That may take another
1 or
30,
2 months.
30 to 60 days.
Mhm.
They could lose the sale, correct, because of that.
Especially if it's cash.
And it's cash, so, that's a lot in my opinion to put on a homeowner.
Okay.
That's right now, that's how I see it as of right now.
You can hope to change your mind by this statement. Unfortunately, that's the part that I disagree with Sharon. When you sell a home, when you decide to sell a home, you just don't wake up one morning, hey, let's sell the home. You don't do that. It's a conversation that happens 9 months before when you want to sell it, put it on the market. I don't know, what your relationships are with your companion, but I can't make a decision unless it's a joint decision. So there's a time factor in this that people are missing. I called 5 survey companies. And Sharon is correct. If you call the locals, yeah, they're gonna give you a high price. I called the survey that does Captain's Cove, $800. When you buy a car, do you go to one dealership? I don't think so.
Let me interject on this.
Sure.
But we're talking about resale certificates. That has never been under the purview of ARC. It's getting added to this. I don't think that we should be going there at all because
Right.
we have regulatory things through the real estate association. I'm more concerned about us discussing some of the other stuff because the resale packets, we should not be dragging into ARC's concern. It has never in 50 some years been that. That is something that you have realtors, you have attorneys, you have settlement people, you have buyers, you have sellers. You've got 5 different people trying to make sure that everything is correct. And I don't think that we should be adding that to part. You guys have a lot to do already. And Sharon and her folks, they're the watchdogs for that. Granted, there were some things happening during COVID that messed up a lot of stuff, but let's not make future decisions based on that. And I just don't think that we should, we're putting a lot of time and effort in on that. I don't think that part is.
And I'd like to add a comment. Sometimes you can't put your head in the sand. If you got a problem, put it on the table. It's not my decision, it's your decision. I put it on the table, it's all yours.
Can I just make one
Thank you.
clarification?
Thank you.
An as-built
welcome.
survey does not show the property line. You just mentioned a fence issue.
Mhm.
That's a whole different survey. That's a property boundary markers. So if the fences are the issue, that's even a more expensive service. As-built just shows the whole length of lot, but not the corners, the safety the corners.
And it shows what's permanently there and stuff. You know, I think some of the other things, that I don't know if that we need to go through all of these unless you wanna talk about temporary structures and that sort of thing. I think that, you know, this is an informational meeting, you know, to understand, but it seems like most of the concern is on the resale packets. You know, there were other concerns with temporary structures.
Yeah, Elaine, it's, when we're working and somebody wants to put a fence up
Mhm.
or a shed. Or we look at, and there's a shed already and it shouldn't be there. Or it looks like secrets in somebody's backyard. He's got too many sheds.
Mhm.
It's really not our concern. It's really goes to the other.
Correct.
And they should control that.
Mhm.
We're just, it's like anything. It's like you're buying a big piece of property. What are you buying?
Mhm.
It's really on them. You know, you can grandfather a lot of stuff in. I understand that, yeah, and you don't want to tread on everybody's feet. You want to make it nice. I mean, we come up with ideas like,
Mhm.
well, you can't really have 16 feet, but can you live with 14?
You
Well,
guys
you
are
lose your time.
terrific. with
Yeah, and
folks
then
who-
we advise and give them ideas that they can live with. And that's our background. That's what we're trying to do. But there's a lot of problems in the middle. We really don't want to get involved with that lineage.
That's correct. And so you guys do a really terrific job working with folks who come in for variances for really legitimate reasons. And it's really wonderful the way you work with folks.
Absolutely.
And you know, you don't want to muddy the waters by people being all upset because every time they will need to get a permit or come to before that committee, they're gonna have to spend $1,400 to $2,000 to have a survey within the last 2 years. There's something that just doesn't.
Well, maybe it's something like anything new, a new addition, a new patio, a new screen porch, when you will be required to get a permit from us and from the county
Correct. And
as the setbacks.
all of that, that's absolutely correct. And it won't change that. It's really just having to have a survey within 2 years. Somebody may have done a porch 15 years ago and nothing else to the property. Why should they have to get a new survey that's only 2 years old before they can get a permit because now they want to do a patio or some other project? There are still those requirements in these docs that if somebody wants to put in something new, they have to get a survey. Then when it's done, they have to get an up-to-date as-built. So those are already there. What I am just not thinking is fair to our members is having to do it just to do it because there were some problems during COVID when things were kind of happening in people's backyards and nobody knew what was going on. And I think we just have to deal with those as they come up. Tristan, I sat on that committee for 2 years, and I think some others may have prior to that. There's very few of those kinds of requests that come there. Most of it is fencing. And more it's due because we have lots of tiny lots here. And when this community started, they were these little beachy homes that are coming down on the weekends. Now we have people building all the way to the last inch that they can, and then they come in and ask, they want a fence. Well, they didn't leave room for a fence. those are the kinds of things that are happening now. And that, you know, it is difficult for you all are doing a great job in figuring out how they can possibly make these things work, but I just, you know,
So,
I just don't think we need to be this restrictive on these as-built that are being.
so what you're saying is that then this is really separated. You have operational and you have park, right?
Correct.
Okay, so here's my question. We put a solution on the table with an ASBIL. What's the other solution?
We will talk about that, but ARC needs to stick, and I'm not trying to be not nice about this. ARC's job is not to fix all of the sins in every department, and the CPI. that
No,
is-
we're not saying that. I'm asking for a solution. Have you guys talked about a solution?
Can I?
That's why we're
ask a
here
question?
tonight.
Can I?
We're here tonight to learn.
Yes, it's Mike, right? Let me ask you a
Bruce,
question.
go ahead.
Thanks. You're talking about, like, what's the solution? I guess what would be helpful to me if you could clearly identify the problem that you're trying to fix with an as-built requirement on a resale.
Okay, on the resales, not everything is picked up. And if it's not, it's grandfathered in, and that's.
Well, see, that's where, when you say grandfathered in, what do you mean by that?
Once that property conveys, it's no longer the responsibility of the new owner to correct that problem.
I guess that's where I disagree with
I don't think that that's.
Well, it never happens. It doesn't happen.
you. Well, I think it has happened.
I'll give you an example, 25 Sandy Hook Lane. They were on a violation. They were on that violation list.
They were a buyer or they were a.
This is something, they weren't a buyer. This was an existing property owned by these people. They were on the violations list for 2 years.
Okay.
Suddenly they were taken off. Were the corrections corrected? No. So they applied for a permit. I'm looking at a piece of paper, looks fine. Boom, 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 boom. I'm looking at the violations list, they're off.
Well, that's a different situation. So here's what I'm focused on is resales, okay?
Well, even on resales, if you're looking at a resale and the guy goes out and checks it, an inspector, do you think he knows the difference between 15 feet and 12 feet?
Well, here's the
And
point,
where's the property line?
here's the point that I want to make that everybody's clear. And I believe I'm correct in saying this, that if there is a property that has a restriction violation on it, and that property is sold with the violation, that becomes the problem of the buyer of the property.
I disagree. We have Linda here. Linda, could you respond to that?
It is
please?
true.
We just.
It is true. And Linda's here just to take notes.
I know she's here and she was, but Linda has more knowledge about the situation than anybody here. in
Yeah,
this room.
and sometimes those things get dealt with an after the fact permit or something like that, but it is a compliance problem that the buyer, as the owner of it's a compliance problem on the property. And the fact that the property gets sold from one person to
I'm
another
gonna tell you what,
doesn't eliminate the
I'm
compliance.
gonna send the owner to your office.
We've
Okay,
had these situations.
well,
We've had them.
it's
We've had 'em
grandfathered in. I've been here for 2 years. It's grandfathered in. I don't agree with you. That's my point.
I think we're just trying to solve a problem in a way that I don't see is workable. We can't fix all of those kinds of problems with an as-built. It's just, it's very costly, it's time consuming. There are other ways to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think we should look at.
And I think we should all consider it. Exactly. And I'm here to help. I'm not here to be adversarial. I get it. I get what you're saying.
No, we appreciate the feedback, actually, that's
That's
why
why we're here.
we're, and truly, that's why we wanted you here to have
And
this
I do think
discussion.
that there are some other ways to deal with that resale problem.
Yeah.
I've thought about it. I think there are some, I'm not gonna get into it now because my idea is
But
not.
that's what we need to come to.
But I think there are other ways to deal with it than I think the as-built requirement really is gonna amount to kind of a restraint on marketability.
Yeah.
That I don't think an HOA can impose. I just don't think so. So.
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on that a little bit. The
everyone, that we represent within Ocean Ponds are for the most part sellers. And that gets back to the marketability issue. If you're gonna impose more restrictions on the seller outside of what's already required, the natural course of events would be the buyer's gonna say, well, we got all these problems, go back to the buyer's real estate agent who talks to the seller's real estate agent is gonna say, you gotta drop the price 8,000, 10,000, 12,000. And so for all of our members, they're losing money after paying for the as-built survey. That's the first thing. Second thing, I don't know that the committee or the board for that matter has to solve the problems of the past. My best guess, and I'd be happy to be corrected, but I've heard enough stories about what's gone on over the first 50 years of Ocean Ponds to say that there was less paperwork submitted. There were more sort of oral okays, go do this. The rules and regulations have shifted and changed. And so for the problems you're identifying, I'm not saying they're not real, that go back to the surveys you see in 1985, 95, 2005. Those are problems from the past due to either bad performance or bad record keeping or anything else. My view, you don't have to solve those. We live with those. Okay, so if you want a solution, that's the solution. We live what has happened in the past. You're not going to change the past. And to impose future financial restrictions and costs on some people who live in Ocean Pines to solve a problem, that's to me the incorrect way to proceed. Carried a step further. I have no disagreement with your description about lack of inspections at the time of COVID. By the way, for what it's worth, I went to closing on the day that the governor closed Maryland down on COVID to buy this house. The other thing that I would say to you is not all of the houses for which there was a lack of inspection or the inspection may not have been as complete reflect major violations that we need to worry about. So the universe that you're describing may be significant, but the total number of really serious problems is probably infinitesimal compared to that. So again, my view would be we don't have to go back and solve those problems. We live with them. So, and that's notwithstanding the issues of exceeding our jurisdiction in terms of these other packages at the time of closing. So, I mean, I understand the issues that you're describing, but from ARC's point of view, the issue is really what do we do as we get new variances coming in? And Elaine's description strikes me as correct. Person who wants to get the variance submits the appropriate paperwork. It includes a list of, ARC gives them a list of things they need to do. It would be nice, frankly, if it doesn't say it, at some point you all change your cover sheet to say, we're here to help. Tell us if you've got a problem, we'll work with you. And most importantly, because I've heard this from a number of people, you got two clearances to get through, Ocean Pines and Worcester County. Just because Worcester County agrees doesn't mean we have to agree.
Exactly.
So those sort of issues, it seems to me, if you lay those out at the outset, you make it clear this is not an adversarial problem or issue, that for the variance that you're seeking, we're willing to work with you. We may not be 16 feet, it may be 14 feet, maybe 13 to 9 inches, but you can work that out. But the rest of this stuff, in light of people who live in Ocean Pines, who will always be sellers, those are the people we represent. And those are the people we can't tax to reach the conclusion that may or may not be real, but that you're seeking. Okay, that's sort of where I fall out.
Stuart,
Yeah, thank you, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Stuart, are you muted?
No, I am not.
In here.
You're muted.
Can you guys hear me at all?
We can't hear you.
Crap. Let me go in on this. Hold on. Darn it. It's always something with these things.
You talking about?
I think you just said son of a bitch.
You're muted. He-
Still,
He is muted.
yeah, he is, I can see it.
They can hear him online. apparently.
Oh.
But
Oh, we can't.
Speakers. like-
I think he's looking now. Right, let me text him.
Is it on his end or?
The
No, it's him.
people on the line can hear him, they're saying.
All right.
I can't hear
We
him.
can't.
It's on our end.
yeah, that's.
Really?
Can you
Oh,
guys hear
Laura
me now?
said-
Yeah, it's on our, end. whatever.
And let me,
speakers are on,
let
so
me-
the TV, something's not up.
Always
Oh.
something with these
Where's the
things, I swear to God.
Oh, that's up.
Yeah, we're on.
Okay, can you guys hear me now, okay?
I'm online. I can hear you.
Okay, can everybody in the room hear me? Oh, geez.
There you go.
There you go.
All right.
All right, I went on my phone so that I could be heard. All right, listen, to echo Steve, and I agree totally with what Steve said. Going forward, we can't focus on what happened in the past. Going forward, starting now, we put these rules in effect. But I really do feel like we're punishing all for the sins of a few. This puts an incredible undue burden on our homeowners. And listen, the ARC does a great job. And you hear a lot of different people that come in for variances for whatever reason. I mean, I have a neighbor on my street that sold their house with a violation, and the violation went with the new buyer, and they had the new owner had to clear up that violation because his dock was connected to his bulkhead or something. But I'm echoing Steve on this. I don't see if Worcester County doesn't require this. You do have two hurdles. You have Worcester County and then Ocean Pines. But I think that the as-built survey puts too much of a burden on our homeowners. And thank you, Steve, for bringing that forward because you voiced exactly what I was thinking.
Thanks, Stuart.
Chuck.
Yep.
Thanks, John. You know, I'm not gonna go too much further than what Steve has said and Elaine and now Stuart, but we have declaration of restrictions in our architectural review committee guidelines really to protect our architectural culture. I mean, that's what they're there for. They're important. Like I said, they really are important.
Absolutely.
But we have an architectural review committee, and I heard it from you, that should be there to help our association members meet our cultural guidelines. And I heard an example of what you said. Adding this as-built survey is an unnecessary burden that we don't want to put on the cost of our association.
I don't have much to add. I mean, I kind of echo the same thing. I think about it in terms of fleecing our owners today. I don't know. I can't see it. I think what I saw in some other recommendations I thought were very good. But when it comes to the as-built, I just don't see it. I don't see it. I think it's unfair to our homeowners. That we're, trying to make the place, a great place to live and not be fleeced. Everybody's getting fleeced by cost, here 1,000 or 2,000. And I just think it may not be needed. And if there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and close this discussion. I'll close this discussion. I'll reinstate Robert's rules and move to adjournment. I have a motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? This meeting is adjourned.